Hello, hello. So on the weekend, I shared some of my deeper thoughts, really around physical and spiritual warfare that we are collectively under at the moment. There is a weightiness to these days right now as people are cracking under financial pressure. Obviously, Rona continues, relationships are crumbling. There's a division that is expanding between all of us, with different thoughts on things. There are floods engulfing communities across Australia right now, and I would say worst of all, there is a war that is breaking out, that has already broken out between Russia and Ukraine. There is a very real sense of, or like a real potential of that war expanding and people in our own spheres potentially enlisting, joining the army to fight back. And of course, we're praying that that is not what all of this leads to, but we're all feeling it, I think. And so that is what I spoke to on the weekend, and I really was emphasizing around the spiritual side. And today I want to talk about the physical, and both strengthening spiritually by preparing physically and tactfully exiting the system or systems. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. I hope you'll stick around for it. I shared, like over the weekend, I was sharing like an increasing need for physical rescuing, and how the Bible talks about a day is going to come where that physical rescuing and the experience of being physically saved from our experiences is coming. That is coming. A day is going to come where there will be no more tears and no more mourning and no more pain. But that right now, the more urgent rescuing that is needed is in the spiritual. And let me explain that there are two dimensions playing out. There is what is going on in the physical, which is what we are experiencing in the tangible, flesh-like way. And then there's what we're experiencing in the spiritual, which is the unseen but ever pervading battle between light and darkness. I said something over the weekend, and I'm just going to quote it because there are a few people that have commented on this that it really struck a chord. And I just said, without first being rescued in the spiritual, we will not know how to participate in the physical in a way that is light and hope. And what we know is not only does light always win and overcome darkness, but that light has already overcome darkness. And we can be confident in that, and we have access to that power when we put our trust and faith in the person that is Jesus. And when we do that, a healing occurs in our own spirit that overflows to the physical, and we start to actually live different, right? All right, now, now that we've got that all out on the table, let's talk about the physical, because we're here in the flesh right now, right? And what we are experiencing in the physical is not nothing, right? It matters. And when our spirit experiences that healing and hope, we have an anchor that changes everything, both eternally and right now in our flesh. I'm not saying, I want to be careful here because I can hear someone twisting this already. And what I want to really be clear on is that I'm not saying that what you change in your habits and in your life right now in the physical has any weight or bearing or determines your salvation. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, like, so Jesus took care of that, like he did by dying and resurrecting himself from the dead. He did everything that was needed in order to take care of our salvation. And so whatever changes we make in our habits and our lifestyle and how we spend our money and all that kind of stuff, it will not add or detract from the security of our salvation when we have surrendered our lives to Jesus in our heart. Okay, so it starts with a heart posture. When that heart posture is changed, then there is a natural overflow into our lives. And when we make these changes in the physical, we are no longer, I would say we're uncontrollable by physical forces. And that allows us to be able to be beacons of hope and light to others around us when they are suffering under the thumb of oppression. All right, so let's get into it. We're gonna go through it. Some really practical. This is not an extensive list of ways, but we are going to dive into some pretty big things, and potentially some things that you might not have thought of before, and might not have had really necessarily any thoughts about. And I'm going to raise some of them here, but I would love to hear from you. What are some ways that even you in your own personal life have tactfully exited the systems around you? So first, we're going to start with health. This is definitely one of the areas that would be more in my sphere of expertise, but obviously my focus is usually in essential oils. I'm actually not going to be talking about essential oils right now, although they are a huge tool that help us in our health to do some of these other things well. The first one being book an appointment with your doctor to create a plan to come off pharmaceuticals. All right. Pharmaceutical medicine is synthetic, and it has implications on our body beyond just helping us deal with symptoms of things. This is a space that I speak to more at other times around how we can use essential oils and plants and medicine, plant medicine and nature in general to help us with a lot of those things. But right now, I just want to encourage, we want to do what we can to get off pharmaceutical medication where it's possible. Okay, all right, a much more simple one. Consider your alcohol versus filtered water consumption. So even if you have to start really, really small and replace, start looking at how much alcohol do you drink in a week, and start looking at replacing at least 1 glass of alcohol with an extra glass of filtered water. This is just like a simple substitute, right? How about installing, if you can, a full house water filtration system, or committing to at least 1 meal a week that is 100% real, organic, wholesome food. And in that process, become aware of how big food is moving in and pervading your life and your body and your overall functioning. There is so much in our food system that it is not real, and this is contributing to our bodies actually dulling. It's contributing to our bodies, and it's dulling our ability to think and act consciously and with conviction. And I know that all of this language might be really new to you, and understanding the food industry might be really new to you. But if this is kind of intriguing you, lean into that and have a look more into what is going on in the food industry and the fakeness. I always find it interesting when I go into the grocery store and there's a health food section. I'm like, okay, so if there is a health food section, what is all of the rest of the food in here? Anyway, and then in the health food section, there's a whole bunch of expensive crap anyway, a lot of the time, not all of it. Okay, this is a new one. I actually, this next one, I was inspired to share because Ange Peters, in fact, a lot of what I'm sharing today was inspired by many conversations and things that I have shared with through Ange Peters, so I really want to share this one. She talks about removing implants, and I'm going to add to that stopping injecting ourselves with fillers as well. Even if you aren't obviously aware of the implications these things are having on your health, some people do have very obvious like symptoms and experiences that they have that are connected to and like known connected to their implants and fillers and reactions that their bodies are having, and their bodies like doing what their bodies are supposed to do, which is actually like expel, get rid of what shouldn't be in there, and there are bodies like lovingly talking to us, telling us, hey, this shouldn't be here. But lots of times women and men will have implants and be putting fillers in their bodies and not be aware of the implications that is having on their health, on their physical health. What Ange talks about is she actually had her breast implants removed for no other obvious reason other than she felt that it was blocking her ability to strengthen spiritually, and that there was this physical, when there is this physical element of ourselves that is unauthentic, it blocks us from true deep connection. In that true deep connection can only happen in the space of like a radical honesty. And when we look at ourselves in the mirror and who is reflected back to us isn't fully us, but there is a fakeness in there that has implications on our spirit. This is going to make sense to some and it will not make sense to others, so I'm going to leave the rest of that there. I'm going to dive into finances. So we talked about health, going into finances on a super basic level. Get into your bank statements and have a look at where your money is going. Okay, look this week, like write it in, sit down with your partner, your spouse, or just yourself even, and have a look at your bank statements and have a look at where your money is going. Look at the decisions that you're making around spending. How are those decisions, how is that spending contributing to the future health and life that you want to be living? Look at every single transaction. Is it contributing to the person that you want to be, the life that you want to live, the health and the vibrancy that you want to have in your body? And if it is not, consider releasing that expense and getting rid of it. When you identify the dollars you're spending that don't align with the future that you want, it's time to make new decisions and release those things. It is time to create a plan to release debt. Some really great books that I have and other resources I'm actually going to share with you right now that have been absolutely crucial in our own journey for Jay and I as we have come to learn about finances, because frankly no one teaches. Like our parents didn't teach us how to manage money, likely because they didn't know how to manage money, and that maybe more later on in their adulthood they figured it out further down the road, but no one taught us. Hey, like who taught you how to manage money? Did anyone? And so if no one taught us, then what are we doing? So here's some resources that we use. One of the first courses that Jay and I took, it was a free course. Actually, at the time, it was with our church that we were part of, and they ran, it's called CAP, so CAP, stands for Christians Against Poverty, and it is a international, free, non-for-profit organization that helps people get out of poverty. Now, if you are in debt, you are living a level of poverty, and this organization was really created to help you. So look them up, have a look at getting to one of their training sessions. They usually are free, as for the best of my knowledge, but they're excellent. There are things that we learn in that course that we don't necessarily still implement in our ways of managing money now, but there are foundational things that certainly we took from it that are super helpful, and I really do encourage anyone going and checking that out. Some other resources we've used and that we found really helpful was there's a documentary called FI, F-I, it stands for Financial Independence. There's a whole organization on that as well. Really helpful things in there. I've also loved Dave Ramsey's book, Baby Steps. And he's got another one around building legacy as well that I loved. Barefoot Investor, if you're Australian especially, Barefoot Investor speaks very specifically to Australians and our banking systems and things like that here. He's got a pretty old school approach. In fact, both Dave Ramsey and Barefoot Investor have a pretty old school approach, but as a bare minimum, they will help you get out of debt and take ownership of your finances in the most basic sense. So I really recommend those for you all. Financial hooks they're deep, guys. They affect our ability to make sound decisions elsewhere, not just with money, but elsewhere. When we are in survival mode financially, we are in survival mode. And in survival mode, we are not making considered decisions or actions, all right? So we need to pause long enough to truly think about our spending and be intentional about our outgoings, or it will be to our own destruction. We will be turning to the systems like the government and the banks to help us survive. We will take out loans, we will ask for grants, we will all of those things. We will be turning to these outside systems for our survival. And that inherently makes us slaves to them. And it keeps us under their grip. We need to own our financial situation and create financial independence, which I know is easier said than done, but we must start wherever we are. We must start wherever we are. And the decisions that we're making right now in this time are seeds planted for what is going to be our lives in the next coming years. Okay, some other extra things I put in here around this as well was around diversifying your income streams and your assets. So where are you currently receiving money? Write them down. You might be like most people and only be able to write down one, maybe two streams of income that you receive. Likely the paycheck that you receive from your employer, and very potentially the paycheck that you might receive from the government because of, whether it's, the family, I can't remember what they're even called because we don't get them, but I remember there was like the family tax benefit, and there was different over the years, I remember different things landing in our bank accounts, and then all of a sudden they weren't landing in our bank accounts. And I wasn't concerned about it because I actively have chosen not to be dependent on those things, nor do I hold a mindset where I feel entitled to them. In fact, I don't feel entitled to them at all. So long as I'm receiving those payments from the government, then I have to do what they say. Not so much that I'm receiving them, but more so if I'm dependent on them, I have to do what they say. And that is the situation that so many people have been put in over the years, and it's caused them to potentially make decisions around their health that aren't in alignment with their values in order to keep an income stream that they were depending on, and that is not how it should be. So how do we diversify our income streams and our assets? All of us have a diverse set of skills, okay? We all do, and it's time to consider what our skills are and get creative. Think about how you could create a second or third income stream or a side hustle that could be your rescuer if you were to lose your job. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. You don't have to become an artist if you're not an artist. or an entrepreneur if you're not an entrepreneur. But it could be that you set yourself up with a part-time babysitting job, or become an Uber driver, or selling your crafts on Etsy or other platforms, become a graphic designer. Like, you are creative in some sense. It's in there. You know that it is. Identify it. Figure out, is there a way that you could sharpen that skill set or that passion that you've got to create an income? And be brave. Like, just be brave. You just don't know what will come of it. I will not offer any like very specific financial advice here. That is not my place of expertise. I will tell you, part of my own efforts have included developing assets outside of the centralized banking system. And I do think right now that is an important thing to consider. I'm not suggesting you go rip out all of your money from the centralized banking system and pop it over somewhere else. But I certainly know it, I shouldn't say I certainly know, but I would say it is highly wise, very, I don't know if that's even a proper sentence. I would say it is wise to diversify where you are holding your money, if that makes sense. If you want to talk more about that, do reach out. We as a family, we have been trialing an investment platform for over a year that is 100% passive residual income. We actually receive a weekly paycheck from that, that we've been incredibly grateful for. That has it's created a shift for us that we're grateful for, and so I'm happy to share that with you on a more personal level if you would like to talk about it. But again, I won't offer specific financial advice. You may want to consider investments that you can tangibly hold, things like gold and silver and land and things like that. You want to stick with things that appreciate in value, not to depreciate. So having a tangible investment like a vehicle probably isn't the best kind of financial investment to make as an asset that is going to make you money. Okay, so if you are investing, and it's not impossible, I've watched, it's certainly true that like with secondhand vehicles, they kind of spiked in prices, and that I know that like I bought my X-Trail, when I had an X-Trail, I bought it for about $6,000, and I sold it right before the peak in secondhand vehicles happened. I sold it for like $3,000 or something, and now you can't find that exact X-Trail for any less than $6,000 or $7,000. And it's like, it was older, it had more kilometers on it, all of those things. But yeah, there has been a peak there. But in general, cars depreciate in value, and so that's not, I wouldn't recommend that. But things like gold, silver, and land, they're not going anywhere. Usually. Okay. Okay, then the other thing I wanted to mention here around finances as well was voting with your dollars. And as we learn about specific companies that align or don't align with our values, we want to shift where we're spending our dollar. I know that when I first started my business, a huge reason behind why I started my business was because I wanted to be able to afford the products that aligned with my values, right? In that when we are living under financial pressure, we are backed into a corner to make financial purchases that are cheaper and very likely, not necessarily, but very likely not ethical or not aligned with our values. And so yeah, that's something I just want to put there as well, of you don't have to announce, that company that you have decided doesn't align with you anymore, you're not going to shop there ever again. That doesn't need to be a known public thing. You don't need to do that. You can quietly turn yourself from that business or that product or whatever and pivot your dollar elsewhere towards the companies that do align. Yeah, you just simply pivot your spending towards the companies that align with your values and convictions. All right, technology. Oh, there's so much we could say about technology. I'm not gonna go super deep into this, but things like turning off your tracking. There is a huge manipulation in data right now, and when there's manipulation in data, there's manipulation of people. So turning off tracking on your phone as best you can. Not scanning into places. I know that's controversial, but I'll put that there for you, in that it's nobody's business where you go or don't go. Never allowing cookies. You know, when it pops up and it says, do you allow cookies for whatever? I don't even know what the rest of it says. Cookies is a code word for tracker. It's just, they chose it as like a word that sounds positive, so that we would always just like click accept, and then they would be able to track you and your searches and all of those things. So if you're not okay with that, say no. It is now an option. I think legally, whenever it pops up, it no longer is allowed to just have one box that says yes, I accept, for you to continue and see the rest of the page. It now actually has to have a spot that you can click, maybe no more information. You can click on that and then you can like exit it and then it be gone. But yeah, not allowing cookies. There are programs out there that can like disguise your technology as well. So if you are based in a certain location, I know in Canada right now, and probably here in Australia as well and other places, there is a lot of monitoring being done of our searches and all those kinds of things, and there is a filter that is being put in place that is stopping people in certain locations from being able to gain access to certain news and information. And so there are programs out there that can actually disguise your devices to be located in other parts of the world. So it might be worth doing a search on that and looking into whether that's something that would be relevant and helpful for you. Turning off your TV and the radio. Consider the platforms that you're consuming information from and choose wisely and intentionally. Location, okay? I love Ange Peters, she put it this way: voting with your feet. I love that language. Have you considered how you vote with your feet, where you live? I reckon it would be incredibly wise of us to consider having dual citizenship if it is possible. That would be a smart move right now, especially if a war is about to break out. Depending on where you are a citizen of, your country could ask, particularly the men in your lives, to go off to war. Are you okay with that? Or can you leave? Can you legally leave? Being a dual citizen allows you to legally leave a country, as opposed to get on a plane and get somewhere and be a refugee, okay? These are weighty things, I know they are. It also is where you're paying your tax dollars. Are you okay with your tax dollars going to your government where you currently live right now? Are you impressed with your current government? I don't think many of us are overly impressed with our governments at the moment anywhere in the world, and this is a tricky zone, but where can we potentially go that is going to allow us as best we can to live freer and give us the scope that we would like to pursue the lifestyle that we want to live, right? understand the trickiness around that, Jay and I made decisions between the two of us to move to another country where we have no family, extended family. We made those decisions before all of this. And we're still, as much as we miss our families, we still know that this was what was best for us. And right now we're really grateful to be exactly where we are, because for the most part, we are able to live in a way that aligns with us. All that to say, if you feel as though you can't leave because of family or because of external people or things, jobs, schools, whatever is anchoring you in a specific location, right now might be a time to consider what your higher values are. And that's not to necessarily say that you definitely should move. It's more the consideration of, are you where is best for you right now? And being open to what the answer to that question might be. All right, education. Oh, our brains are always being brainwashed. What are we allowing them to be washed with? Okay, by now you're probably aware that the public school system is the very best place for the government to raise the kinds of citizens that they need in the coming years, in 20 years, who are going to be voting, okay? It is an entire government training ground, all right? This is going to be another huge hook for most people, in that most of us will feel totally inadequate, like myself, to be a homeschooler, okay? However, homeschooling is not the only option. There are so many options now. There are pods, groups of communities, homeschooling groups, independent schools, online things. There are so many ways, so many ways of learning that are popping up. They're everywhere. These groups are everywhere. And because more people are seeking to exit these systems, that's why they're existing. So it's time to ask ourselves, what do I need to do to pull my kids and our investment out of that system if it doesn't align? Who do you want your kids surrounded by, right? Who do you want surrounding your kids? Do you know the answer to that? What influences are you desiring for them? It's time to be tight in this area. And I don't mean go hide in a hole somewhere and isolate yourselves from all of the world. I don't mean that. But it is time to tighten up in these areas and not just allow anyone and anything to hover around our children. A really eye-opening book to read on this subject, actually. It's a book called Weapons of Mass Instruction. It's by John Tyler Gatto. Really fascinating read if you want to have a look at that. Okay, employment. If you have a job that is asking you to compromise your morals, your values, your standards, it is time to go. It was time to go before. If the company you're working for has recently built coercion into its model, it is time to exit that system and trust what is going to open up for you. There are companies, businesses, business owners who are specifically looking for you. I feel so grateful for the beautiful girl we've been able to hire as our nanny because of the job that she stepped away from when her employer was implementing the mandates, and that didn't align with her, and she's bravely stepped away from that and trusted what was going to be before her, and is thriving. She's absolutely thriving. And all of the people that I know that were brave soldiers to exit the system when coercion came. They are thriving. They have found new ways of moving forward, of creating income, being employed or starting their own businesses or whatever. But yeah, they were brave, they trusted, and they're thriving because of it. So take that as an encouragement if you have felt the prick of, the hooks of your employer. Changing your career is certainly another way that you can pull your most precious investment, which is your time, right? Likely where you work is where you spend your most time, and money is not our only form of investment. Our time and our energy is. And if you are in a place that has built that coercion into its model, is that really where you even want to be spending the majority of your time? All right, relationships. So speaking of time, okay, who are you spending your time with? The currency that you are giving people when you're with them, or when you are consuming their content, reading their posts, all the things, it's precious, and it impacts you and your thoughts. And what impacts your thoughts will impact your actions. So while we are not seeking to create a greater divide between people, I do really want to emphasize the okayness it is for certain relationships to be seasonal. And when I say certain, I mean do not so lightly walk away from your marriages, or certainly your children. Those ones are not to be considered as lightly as what I'm speaking about right now. I am speaking more about friendships, in that friendships are allowed to be seasonal, and you can still love and be friends with someone without spending as much time with them. It doesn't have to be a dramatic exit and breakup in a friendship. If you recognize toxicity, or even a simple disconnect between a person's words and their actions, you are allowed to lovingly and quietly step back, okay? What if instead of filling our calendars or our time spent with people that don't align with their convictions and don't align with our own convictions, what if we became more curious about those who do? What if we became more curious about the people who were sounding the alarm years ago? What if we connected with them? What if we redirected our time and our energy away from the people that don't reflect our values, and we start, and that will start to reshape our thoughts and our life? And within that, you'll become way less interested in lots of things. And something I really want to bring up here as well is that when you make this change and you become really clear on what your values are, you become way less interested and influenced by the groups of people that the system leverages strongly to influence us, to influence you, influence the masses. And those two groups mainly are like Hollywood and like your modern day gurus, your experts, queens of new age. How many of us, I'm sure this is true, so many of us have felt this, that like check in our spirit about some of these people, where it's like, oh, that feels off, that feels something's behind that doesn't feel right. We feel it in our spirit, even if we haven't been able to articulate it before now, we feel it. But yeah, these groups are heavily leveraged in these times because their influence works. When you are clear on your own values and your morals, You won't care about the influencer. They will not be able to get their hooks into you. Instead, you can be intentional with who you allow yourself to be around and lean in with intrigue. I really encourage you, lean in with intrigue to the people in your sphere who are living out their values and convictions. You'll know them by their fruit. You know who they are. How could they possibly have known so long ago what is happening right now is happening? How could they have known that? Study their life. What allowed them to see it so clearly so long ago? What allowed them to have that clear vision and awareness of it all before us, before you? Their lives leave clues, and I would dare say a lot of those clues they're pointing towards the fact that they've exited systems. They're not held under the thumb of these systems. Lastly, I'm going to put this here as well. Plug into a church community that, if that aligns for you, a place where you can be in community with people that don't necessarily think exactly the same as you, but are actively seeking to live their lives in alignment with their values. Not all churches, groups, bodies of people are going to do that. But seek one out. It's hard. Trust me. I really know how hard it is because I have battled it and I still don't know if I've found it, but I slowly have been finding people. And the church is not just in fact, it's not even a building, it is people. If you have never done this before, I encourage you to contemplate getting yourself a copy of the Bible. It will not be hard. It is the most popular book in the world, and it is sharper than any double-edged sword, and it will cut right through the crap. Reading the Bible has been an absolutely integral part of my own ability to navigate not just these particularly dark times, but through my life. I was not raised a Christian. I was not raised in a Christian household. I did not come from a home where I was preconditioned to just believe the Bible. I have dug through it myself. I have studied it. And because I have studied it and I have found treasures in those words, timeless wisdom, I've been able to navigate wild times in our life, and I feel equipped to navigate these ones also. In fact, I feel a great confidence, and so I encourage you that if you feel as though your peace has been stolen and you are looking for it, this space, the internet, social media, experts, gurus, politicians, Hollywood stars, etc., you are not going to find your peace there. You will not find your peace in me. I will disappoint. It's time to look to the eternal. It is time that we look at how we are giving our preciousness, our treasures away, and divert away from the physical structures that are designed to keep us in physical and spiritual bondage. The collapse in these systems is absolutely inevitable, but it won't be public. It won't be so obvious, guys. It won't be so obvious. Instead, you are going to see it when you look in the eyes of families who removed themselves from the system years ago and are thriving through these dark times. You will see it in a friend who you haven't seen in years, and because of the decisions that they made during this time to take ownership of their health, they lost like a ton of weight and are healthy and strong. It will be when you see big food throwing truckloads of fake food, fake meat, dumped into landfills. It'll be when you see executives of pharmaceutical companies getting rid of their stocks. That's happening. It will be hidden, guys. This collapse will be hidden. But it will be there, and you'll see it. You will see it in your own ways. You'll see it. If you were like me, if you're anything like me and have at times felt the great need to convince people of what you feel is going on, hi, there's nothing left to say. At this point in time, the curtains have been torn. We're all left with the opportunity to see things through our soul or through our programming, okay? There is nothing left to say to convince anyone on any side of any argument. Everyone would just like to be left alone. There's nothing left to say. It's time to surrender. It's time to surrender. There are going to be people who say, I was just doing my job. I was just doing what I was told. It's not my place to speak up. But in all of this time, I think I said this earlier, we each will have been sowing seeds that will contribute to how we experience the world in these years to come. We are co-creators of what our world is going to look like in the years to come. And we need to consider, who are we co-creating with? Are we co-creating with the light? Or are we potentially co-creating with darkness? And do we want to change? We need to release those around us. There's no convincing to be done. They will experience the world that they have participated in creating, and we need to unapologetically make our own exit. And yeah, just simply exit the systems in our own life and be ready to be the lighthouse for if and when someone in our sphere comes looking for the hope that we have, that you have. And if and when they come, be generous, right? When we create financial independence, when we create health in our own bodies that doesn't depend on pharmaceutical companies, when we've got options and we don't depend on governments or banks, when these collapses happen, people that we love are going to be hurting, and we are going to be prepared, and we are going to have the ability to be generous. I'm going to leave it just right there. See you guys.